All right, so this video is going to focus on 2.1. And if we look at this, the whole learning target is to find the products of integers. And we know what integers are now. And products just mean that you're multiplying. So to make sure that you understand this, we're going to explain the rules for multiplying integers. We're going to find products of integers with the same sign and then products of integers with different signs. So the first thing I want to talk about is what's up here where it shows this number line. And this is 3 times 2. And it's really important to understand this part here. Let me just quickly put this in. That the first number that you see is actually the number of groups. And then the second number that you see is the group size that we have. So for instance, when I look at this one here where it says 3 times 2, there are 3 groups and the group size is 2. So if I look at this one, I have 3 jumps, that's why it's 3. And then each one of them goes 2 units. So I have 2, 4, 6, and that's why 3 times 2 equals 6. And my question for you is, how would it be different if I did 2 times 3? So think about that for a second. All right, so hopefully you thought about that and you realize that we're going to only have 2 jumps. We'll have 1 from here to here, that's 3, and then I have 1 more. And instead of having my 3 jumps, I have 2 jumps. The answer is still the same, it equals 6, but just a different way to get there. This next one says, let's look for like patterns that we notice. So 2 times 2 is 4, 1 times 2 is 2, 0 times 2 is 0. Really all that I'm doing is dividing or multiplying these numbers. So negative 1 group of 2 would be negative 2. And this is going down by 2 every time. So this is like 2, and then 2 minus 2 is 0, and 0 minus 2 is negative 2. The next one would be negative 4. And the final one is negative 6. So these numbers, when I multiply both positives, of course I get a positive answer. And when I multiply a positive times a negative, I get a negative answer. And this is kind of the rationale for why that happens. If we look at just repeated, just addition in this case. If I look at this one, I have negative 3 times 3 is negative 9. Negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. These are actually going up by 3. So when I go to negative 3 times 0, I get 0. And now when I have a negative times a negative, this is why you have a positive value. And this one is positive 6. And you could really tell or prove it by just making this little box and multiplying these numbers where the number of groups is the same every time. It's just the group size is changing. And you can see the pattern that's emerging. Okay. So if we look at this, we understand that products that have the same, like a positive times a positive is a positive. So this product would be a positive answer. And then of course 3 times 2 is 6. If I look at this one, this is different, because one's a positive and one's a negative. And 3 times negative 2. So 3 times negative 2. One's a positive, one's a negative. This would equal negative 6. And that's a negative answer, of course. For negative 3 times 2, again, it's different. One is a negative, one is a positive. And that equals negative 6. And that's a negative answer. If I have a negative times a negative, they're the same. And 3 times 2 is 6. So this is a positive answer. 6 times 3 is the same. They're both positives, right? So the answer is going to be 18. And this is also a positive answer. Two times negative 5, they're different. And so this will be negative 10. Negative. And then, of course, these two down here, this one's going to be a negative. So this will be negative 30. And this here will be negative or positive 15. So hopefully that you understand that these are kind of the rules. A positive times a positive equals a positive. A negative times a negative equals a positive. A positive times a negative equals a negative. And a negative times a positive equals a negative. So write these rules down. It will help you out as we go through this. The next thing that's on here is just the key ideas. So when we multiply with the same sign as we said before, it'll be a positive answer when the signs are the same. So a positive times a positive is a positive. A negative times a negative is also a positive. And then when I multiply with different signs, Now you'll have a negative answer for these things. So 2 groups of -3 is -6, and negative 2 groups of 3 is -6 also. But again, I have a positive and a negative. So let's take a look at these other ones here that I have. These have the same sign. They're both negatives, so that therefore my answer will be a positive answer, and it's positive 30. If I look at this one, I have 3 times -4. They're different, so therefore your answer will be a negative, right? So that's why it's -12. What I would like you to do right now is I want you to try these right here. So pause the video for a moment, give this a try, see what you get. I just want to know if they're positives or negatives first, and then we'll get the answers. All right, so this one here, they're both the same sign, so it's a positive. This one here, both the same, so it'll be a positive. This one here, both the same, so it'll be a positive. This one here, they're different, right? One's a positive, one's a negative, so this will be a negative answer. This will be a negative answer. And this right here will just be a 0. I know it's different numbers, but since it's a 0, we know that anything times 0 is 0. Now we'll do the math. 5 times 5, of course, is 25. 1 times 9 is 9. 7 times 8 is 56. 12 times 2 is 24. 4 times 6 is 24. But notice I already had the sign here for it, right? For both of these. So the answer was -24. And then, of course, 0. So that's how you do it if you have the same sign or different signs. And if we look at this, this is just exponent rules. So I want to make sure you understand this. These two questions are very different. They look the same, but they're different in the sense that they have parentheses. So this thing that's in parentheses is called the base, right? And the thing up top, this is your exponent, and this is telling you how many times you have to multiply the thing here by. So if it's in parentheses, I'd put down -2 times -2. You put down everything in the parentheses 2 times because it says a 2 right here. And of course, a negative times a negative is a positive, and that's why you get 4 as your answer. But look at this second one. I don't have parentheses, so therefore what I have is I have a negative sign, and then whatever the exponent is touching, that's what you replicate that many times. So in the first one, I replicated everything that was in the parentheses. This one doesn't have parentheses, so I'll put negative sign, and then I'll put down 2 times 2. Well, 2 times 2 is 4, and then I apply that negative sign. So because of how it was written with the parentheses or non-parentheses, it changes the entire answer. And that's how exponents work. Let's take a look at this one here. So I have a negative times a positive times a negative. Okay, so I have 3 things. Well, we know a negative times a positive is a -34. And then I have this 34 times 5. So that would be 170. So I have 170. And it's a negative times a negative, so it's a positive 170, right? It changed. So these two here made it a negative, but then I had a -34 times a -5, and that made it a positive. So that's how I get 170. And then this one here, if I look at it, I have -3 plus 4. So if you think about that, the absolute value here is going to be a 1. So I have 1 inside of here. And then you do -6 times 1. And -6 times 1 is -6. And -6 plus 6 equals 0. So that's how you get 0. So you're going to have a test later on, and I'm going to expect you to know how to do these. So I want to make sure that you could do each one of these. So pause the video and give this a try. All right, so for number 7, if I look at it, 8 times -15, it doesn't really matter what it is because I'm going to multiply it by 0. So my answer at the end of this whole thing is 0. This one here, I have 3 to the 3rd power, right? Now it's negative, and then I have 3 times 3 times 3. And that equals 27, but then I apply that negative sign to it because it wasn't in parentheses. So I have 24 minus 27, because 3 times 3 is 9, and 9 times 3 is 27. So at the end of the day, because my larger absolute value is negative in this case, it will be -3. So you can really see how chapter 1 kind of plays into chapter 2. For this last one, I have 3 minus 5, which is -2, and then times -7. So a negative times a negative is a positive, right? So I have 14, and I have 10 positive 14, so that equals 24. So that's how you do that. For these right here, it says you start, you're solving a number puzzle on your phone. You start with 250 points, and you finish the puzzle in 8 minutes and 45 seconds, and you make 3 mistakes. What was your score? All right, so we know that you, let's see here, it says that you get -50 points for every mistake, right? So we know for a fact that it'd be 3 times negative 50. I'm going to write that down. So 3 times negative 50. And that equals negative 150, right? So I have negative 150. I started off with my 250. And then it says here that every 10 seconds, or each second under 10 minutes equals 1 bonus point. Well, 8 minutes and 45 seconds. So how many seconds is that before I get to 10? Just counting up, that's 15 to get to 9 minutes, right? And then another 60. So I have 60 plus 15. So that's 75. And I get 10 points for each one, right? So let's see here. Did I do that right? So it says each second under 10 minutes is 1 bonus point. Oh, so I only get 1 bonus point for each of these. So 75 times 1. So I have 75. So I'll say plus 75. And that is where all these numbers are coming from down here. And when I add these numbers up, you could add up the 250 plus the 75 if you want, or you could do the 250 minus 150 and then plus 75. It doesn't matter the order. You could use the commutative property if you'd like to, but you don't have to. And at the end of the day, you get 175. You will absolutely have a question like this on the test at the end, so make sure you understand it, and if not, I could help you when I get back. And then if I look at this one here, let's just take a look at one more. It says on a mountain, the temperature decreases by 18 degrees for each 5,000 foot increase in elevation. At 7,000 feet, the temperature is 41 degrees. What is the temperature at 22,000 feet? Okay, so we have to go from 7,000 to 22,000. Let's figure out what that's equal to. And if I do that, I get 22 minus 7, and I get 15, right? So it's 15,000 feet is what it is. And every 500 feet or 5,000 feet that I go up, it decreases by 18 degrees. So I know that for every 5,000, so I'm going to divide that by 5,000. That would be 3. There's 3 5,000s and 15,000. So it would be 3 times 18. So I'll do 3 or 18 times 3. And that's a 4, a 2, and a 54. So it went down 54 degrees. That's crazy. And it says, what's the temperature at 22,000 feet? Well, if it was 41 degrees at 7,000, I have to take 41 minus 54. Now I know my answer is going to be a negative, right? Because my larger absolute value is negative. So I'm going to change this and just do 54 minus 41. Just because it's easier to kind of add up there, right? Or subtract. And I have 3, so I have 13. And I know, again, that the answer is going to be a negative, right? So it'll be negative 13 degrees. That's cold. Yeesh. So that's kind of what we're getting at with this. I'm going to give you some problems that you're going to do through Big Ideas Online. And I expect you to kind of use this. Hopefully it helped you out. I hope you were taking notes as you went through it. If you still need more help, watch it again. You can go back and kind of scroll through. But I'm going to have you try doing some of these problems up here. And that is 2-1.